FBI Director Christopher Wray says that Russia is making, quote, very active efforts to interfere in the 2020 presidential election. Wray testified before a House committee on Thursday. He said that Russia was using a variety of tools like social and state media to disparage Democratic candidate Joe Biden and cause division. Wray's comments contradict those from President Trump and other officials who have been downplaying the Russian threat on election security. For more on all of this, I'm joined by former CIA officer Evan McMullin. He's also the executive director of the advocacy organization Stand Up Republic, and he ran for president in 2016 as an independent. Evan, before we even get into any of this, I wanted to give you also an opportunity to react to this stunning news as somebody who has worked in government and has been a very proud American in so many ways to the passing suddenly of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Well, thank you, Lana, and it's great to be with you. And we certainly mourn the death of such a great public servant, someone who has represented the interests of women in our country and has served for so long in her life, despite many challenges and into her health, and we mourn her passing as Americans, regardless of where we are on the political spectrum or our parties. Certainly, she has served the country honorably, and our heart goes out to her family and the loved ones that she's left behind.
I just want to share with our viewers, because this is such breaking news, a statement that we received from Chief Justice John Roberts saying about Justice Ginsburg, quote, "Our nation has lost a jurist of historic stature. We at the Supreme Court have lost a cherished colleague. Today we mourn, but with confidence that future generations will remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg as we knew her, a tireless and resolute champion of justice." All right, Evan, let's go ahead now and change direction to talk about something that that is so fundamental to the functioning of our country, our election security. So why is Russia so interested in our presidential elections? What is the end game for Russia here?
Well, of course, Russia is led by Vladimir Putin, who certainly regrets the fall from prominence of the Soviet Union. And seeks to reestablish Russia in place in terms of its global influence. But Russia has challenges in that regard. Its economy is less than a tenth of ours here in the United States of America. Its military isn't capable of projecting the way ours is and the way militaries even in Europe are. But it still, under Putin's leadership, seeks to compete as a strategic competitor with the United States and other great powers. And under Putin's leadership, it has learned that it can do that through information warfare. Information warfare is cheap, and Russia and Putin have proven that it can be extremely effective in dividing countries against themselves, making them unable to govern themselves, and certainly unable to project their own power on the global stage. Meanwhile, Putin has learned that through information warfare, he can promote the rise of leaders in foreign countries who are friendly to Russia and its interests. And that includes, in our case, in the United States, advancing and protecting President Trump, who has continued to try to undermine NATO and other free state alliances, as well as actually work himself to turn Americans against each other, which of course means that we're unwilling and unable to protect ourselves from modern threats like the one Russia poses. We're unable to overcome modern challenges, whether it be climate change or healthcare or the growing national debt. Russia knows that it can achieve these measures, weakening us and other countries like us, other free states, without ever firing a bullet, simply with information warfare, and its meddling in our elections is part of that effort.
Well, we know that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election. In what ways does Moscow continue to meddle in our politics today?
Well, the first way that it does that is through pushing disinformation into the U.S. information sphere. So confusing Americans about a variety of issues, whether it be the health of Donald Trump's opponents. Obviously, the President Trump has has focused his rhetoric on Joe Biden's alleged health issues, and the Russians have also pushed those ideas, the idea that Biden is not healthy enough to be president. The Russians have pushed the idea that that vote by mail isn't safe, isn't legitimate. Obviously, Trump has pushed that same message, and both the Russians and Trump have sought to mislead the American people about the coronavirus pandemic. And so, just like 2016, Russia and the Kremlin and Trump are on the same message with regard to a variety of issues that are key in this election. So that's one thing they do, is disinformation. They also hack, and we know that the Russians are hacking the accounts of advisors and consultants to Joe Biden. And we'll see what they do with that information, if they've been able to secure any of it. If they release it like they did through a proxy in the 2016 case, it was WikiLeaks. We'll see what happens in this year. But they also threaten to undermine the security of our election systems, whether they be voting rolls or our counting of ballots, or in this pandemic, the ability of Americans to vote by mail where they're able to do that. And that's a great concern in this particular election, that the Russians might engage in undermining the U.S. Postal Service's ability to perform the role that it needs to perform in this election.
Well, Evan, we heard President Trump respond to FBI Director Christopher Wray's comments today, saying that he thinks that a much bigger threat is really China, and that China needs to be the discussion rather than Russia. What do you say to that?
Well, of course, the president is continuing to do what he's done for the last several years, which is to say, look away from this threat of Russia, and there's nothing to see here. Rather, it's a 400-pound man in his mother's basement, or it's China. Of course, a range of countries, including China, Russia, Iran, yes, they interfere in our politics in different ways. But all of our experts, including Director Wray, have warned us that Russia continues to interfere in a more focused way to influence the outcome of this election. For years or decades, the way Americans perceive China and the government of China, whereas in the case of Russia, it's very different. Putin is trying to impact the election, the results of this election, in the same way he did in 2016, obviously weighing in then in support of Trump, and now trying to support Trump again, trying to keep him in power, trying to undermine the expression of the will of the American people through our election. And that should be something that we should all be concerned about. It's a tremendous threat to our country, and it should be something that we can all unite around, whether we're Republicans or Democrats or independents. This is something that we need to overcome as a nation, but it's very hard to do it now that Russia has a politician who they've backed in the Oval Office, and he is intent on preventing the federal government from doing what it needs to do to defend the country from these malign Russian activities.
All right, Evan McMullin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.